So this is going to be the first of a series of webinars that I'm doing this year. Typically, a lot of the content that I create is for our internal community of agencies, or a few hundred members. But this year, what I've decided to do is kind of roll that out externally and create a series of YouTube series and a webinar series, bringing in some of the people that are in my network that are bringing a lot of value. There are some of you who will know who Will is, especially if you came to the agency retreat that we had at the end of last year in Gran Canaria, the man that could smoke 1,000 cigarettes in a week. That's like quite a skill. Not anymore. He's performed. Bronchitis nearly took him more. But Will is working with a handful of my agencies and has done amazing marketing strategy workshops, implementation with agencies that I know and agencies that I'm also working with. So, marketing is just such a topic for agencies at this time of year, getting your marketing strategy right so you can start filling the pipeline. So I said to Will, do you want to be the first webinar? And let's talk about agency marketing. We're going to do a little bit of a teaching and a little bit of a practical example of what you could be doing. And the goal is that you can take this away and then go and implement yourself. So anyway, Will, over to you. You can introduce yourself. And also one thing I would say is in the chat, there's a chat function in here. Add some comments tell me how amazing I am. No, I'm just joking. Add any questions. We go through the presentation, then I'll pull some of the questions in because that's really what makes this more interactive. Okay, over to you, Will.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Rachel. And yeah, we're going to talk about agency marketing, which is obviously massive topic. But yeah, a little bit about me. I've spent the last 10 years working in e-com agencies, doing their marketing and helping out how integrating marketing with partnerships and sales across EMEA and North America. This time last year, I set up Waye, and we are a agency for agencies and SaaS companies working in e-commerce. So super niche, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, we've been doing that for a year, working with some really awesome agencies and SaaS companies. And I have a very out-of-date headshot as well. So if there's any photographers on the call, please let me know.
And you look better now, or you look more weathered?
Definitely more weathered. This is like...
Yeah.
That picture there is Will with one kid, and this is the picture with Will with two kids. So it's
like you've lived 1,000 lives since that one.
Bigger bags under the eyes, I think. Yeah,
something like that.
So nobody buys a 6-figure website after reading one blog. I think we said this before, so this is definitely at Gran Canaria several times. I say it to all my clients, the one blog, the one asset that you're creating isn't going to be the thing that moves. It's the entire strategy that you're looking at around that article or that asset that you're creating. And that's because only around about 5% of your prospects are ready to buy now, and 95% aren't ready to buy. So you have a couple of options. Number one is you ignore 95% of your prospects and you just try and super target the 5%, which is really hard to do and not really that efficient. Or the alternative is to go after the 100% pie and you create an environment where you become the obvious choice as an agency for when they're ready to buy. And this is what I believe agency marketing is all about. It's about creating an environment for your prospects where you become the obvious choice. Make sense? This is your traditional marketing funnel. Wanted to kind of go through this because I think this kind of underscores everything in terms of how each different bit will connect. Each different asset needs to connect to each other so that you're creating that environment. And so when we talk about top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel, how I like to look at it is the different types of transaction. The higher up the funnel, the less transactional this marketing is. So things like blogs, social media, ads, they're seeing this content, but they're not giving you anything in return. The more you kind of go down to middle of funnel, we've got webinars and downloadables. They're transacting by giving you email addresses and first-party data. And then when you get towards that bottom of funnel, the transaction is more like they turn up to an event, they're giving you their time, you're meeting face to face, that kind of thing. And then ultimately, you want to end on the best transaction, which is money for your services, right? So that's the marketing funnel. I wanted to go through the anatomy of a campaign, and then Rachel, we're going to do a little bit of my workshop, so we can show how we find your ICP and your niches. So what goes into a campaign? This is what I believe works, and then what I've seen work. It has to be a niche and evergreen campaign. That means don't create content that is out of date in 6 months' time. We see a lot of agencies doing things like the Shopify Editions update, and I'm going to upset a lot of people by saying this, but I don't think that that's really valuable marketing stuff. And actually, the time and effort that goes into that, it could be spent doing something that's unique and different. But because it's not really niche, I do think there's an opportunity, and somebody on the chat can steal this. Like, feel free to go and run with this. But I think you could take the Shopify Editions and write it into a newspaper that you physically get printed, and then collect a bunch of physical addresses that you can start sending stuff to. Like, that would be a way to do it, where you then use that content afterwards for evergreen marketing purposes. But for something that's going to be out of date in a couple of weeks that every other agency is copying, probably ignore it. 15 touch points, so 15 different marketing assets is what I see anecdotally being used from like a marketing to sales qualified leads. So they're going to be interacting in several different ways, but it's on average about 15 times before you become that obvious choice. 95% of your leads need to be kept warm. So there has to be some element of automation in there to keep them warm. And you need a mix of inspiration and information. So things that are going to like inspire the e-com directors who typically have no time at all to read these in-depth articles that you created. And so you want to get that inspiration out there. And then when they do a bit more research and they're spending time researching into a Shopify migration or a Klaviyo migration, then you can then give them all the information side of things. It needs to have case studies. There are certain use cases where you could do like a new go-to-market where you don't have a full case study, but 9 times out of 10, if you haven't ever done decent marketing and seen a return, you need to get your case studies in there first. And then finally, you need a mix of top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel, aka different transaction types. So that's the perfect campaign. Who's your ICP? Are you ready, Rachel?
Yeah, I feel like this is. I'm just going to jump in here because I've been quiet for more than 5 minutes, which is unheard of. But I would say, from my perspective, obviously, the way I do with agencies, my goal is to help agencies scale, so the agency owner can step out and either sell the business or just not be involved in the daily operations. But the ICP, or the lack of awareness of the ICP, is often the biggest setback that I see that most agencies have. And for me, it feels like self-explanatory. If you don't know who you're targeting, then everything else is ineffective. Like, if I don't know who my messaging is going out to, then it's not really going to land with anybody necessarily. Oh, let me just 1 second. Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but I'm not dealing with the settings. I'm not a technical person. But yes, if you don't know who it is that you're going to be targeting, then how do you expect that to land? And you might get lucky and do like a little bit of a scattergun or a spray and pray method. And if that's the case, then work. But if at this stage, if you're investing in your marketing strategy, this is the difference between, the way I explain it is, this is the difference between a hand grenade or a machine gun and a sniper. That's really what this comes down to. One of my greatest movies of all time is Jarhead. It's absolutely incredible. And I just love that movie, even though not a lot happens, but it's just the whole idea of like taking your time and preparing for the shot. And sometimes you take the shot and sometimes you don't. But if you're going to take the shot, then don't miss. I would say as well, for me personally, because I was very intentional. I mean, you and I worked at the same agency, not at the same time, because I think the world may have come to an end if that had happened. Certainly that agency could have come to an end if we were. Imagine me, you, and Neil were there together. That would have been crazy. Like, I don't know if anybody would have been left standing. But when I left the agency that I was COO of in London, and then I started this business, I was really intentional about targeting specifically agency owners. And whilst brands will reach out to me and non-e-commerce agencies will reach out to me and other people that are entrepreneurs that, like my straightforward style of communication, I was always very intentional saying, if you're not an e-commerce agency, then I'm not going to work with you. Secondary to that now, as I've matured in the business, not in life, my emotional level has not matured. I think we're all aware of that, but business-wise, I've matured. And now I'm much more intentional of if you're not an agency with minimum or this bracket, then it's not the right fit for me or for you. So, or for those who don't know, ICP, your ideal client persona, because some people don't know all the technical jargon, but understanding your ideal client persona. And one more thing I would add as well is ideal client persona is not necessarily who you're working with currently, but who you're intending to work with. And I think that's where I see a lot of agencies get a disconnect. They're like, well, the clients that I'm working with, I don't really want to target those clients. I want to be moving up market or working with bigger clients. So yeah, ICP. That's it. That's the waffle from me.
Nice. So a bit of context here. This is a workshop that I run with some of my agencies, and this is just like a small part of it, but we won't do this section. I wanted to show this bit because I think this is something that everybody can do when they take it home, is rank all of your clients on a love, like, low scale, and not based on how much money they pay you. Because I think it's very easy to go, I love this client because they give me loads of money, but ultimately they're the biggest pain in the ass. So instead, rank them how you actually like working with them, and then work out what the common and uncommon traits of those clients are. That's going to help you build out a bit of a persona. So, Rachel, you're going to pretend to be an agency, aren't you?
I can. We can if you want. This is a little bit rogue, but we can pick somebody. If somebody wants to raise their hand and be the guinea pig, now, of course, I can do it. But if somebody in the group wants to get a free marketing exercise and wants to raise their hand and be the test case, so Will can kind of build a profile around you. Okay, all right. Well, we've got somebody up. So let me see. How do I do this? We've got Rich. If I can bring Rich on. Oh, God. Technology. Make a panelist. Oh, here we go. Don't know how that happened, but yes.
How are we doing?
Can we hear Rich?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm speaking.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah. No, you think you're speaking. Yeah, you're definitely speaking. It's whether we can hear you. All right, then you don't need to use me. I don't need to be a fake agency owner.
All right, sounds good. Okay, how's it going, Rich?
Yeah, good. Real life agency owner.
Talk to me about your agency. Give me a bit of an introduction about what you guys do.
So we are Get Better. We are a predominantly Klaviyo agency. We work with brands on their strategy for Klaviyo and the sort of what I call the ecosystem around Klaviyo. We specialize with sort of startup through growth brands. So I would say probably, our minimum retainers are a lot more attractive to brands trying to grow to a point than some of the bigger sort of Klaviyo agencies, but we've become a platinum partner by doing that. And so, yeah, our little model works. We specialize in auditing. Everything we do, every introduction we come, we'll never start work without an audit first. And that's a nice sort of plug-in for partners and people to refer into us as well, because it's a bit of a value add if they're doing other work for that brand.
Nice. Exciting. How long have you been going?
3 years, I think. In our current form, probably more like 2. We faffed around for a little while thinking that we were actually a content marketing agency that did some email but we repurposed. We had a universal content strategy where we'd repurpose content for blogs and social and email, and then realized that rather than being average at everything, we'd be much better being damn good at one thing. So that was where we specialized into Klaviyo. The reason I say predominantly Klaviyo is we've recently looked to diversify and dip our toes into a couple of other platforms, Yotpo and MailChimp, just because it's a pretty vulnerable position. Now we're at 15 people to be beholden to one platform. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I'm just going to jump in there, but the point that you make about being multi-platform, even though they may be two inferior platforms to Klaviyo. I'm just joking. And if different platforms are suitable for different people, that then forces you to position yourself as an agency that are speaking to a profile of customer than a specific platform. Like you're in a position now where you have no choice. You have to strengthen your positioning.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd say predominantly Klaviyo in case someone pulls me up or in case someone's here and they're like, don't you have 3 Yotpo brands? Like, I'm talking like 98%. And I mean, there's only Klaviyo that's got window frosting. I think there's obviously with any platform as it grows and stuff, there are pretenders to the throne. And the only real way to see if they did actually stack up was to get in there and do some work with them. So your first comment there would be right about them being inferior. But
for the most part, I mean, it's like what works, like I can be the right fit for some people. And be like, oh my God, that girl is nuts, which is absolutely accurate, and they either love it or hate it. So just because one thing is a good fit for someone, even if I am the superior option when it comes to coaching e-commerce agencies, there might be somebody who's a better fit for another person. I think as an agency, if you're looking at diversifying your platforms, it becomes less about the platform expertise, especially because Klaviyo specifically is so saturated, and anybody who's got half a brain cell and an internet connection and a laptop or an iPad can call themselves a Klaviyo agency owner. So the barrier to entry is so low. It's become so saturated. It's not the blue ocean that it was 8 years ago when I first started in this ecosystem. It's now become a really red ocean. So for you, adding different platforms, then you become an expert in ESPs. And in order to grow, being agnostic with different platforms, you have to then start becoming defined as we're an expert for these profiles of businesses or businesses that have this specific pain point or challenge or whatever. So you're gonna have to make that pivot now or this year in order to make sure that you don't just, once you start adding platforms, you start to dilute.
Yeah, I'd agree 100%. And like, you don't have to necessarily like change your entire positioning all at once. You can start with campaigns that target different personas, and then go, okay, we know where we work now. We know what works, right? And then we'll reevaluate the whole thing. So I wanted to break straight into like personas. Are you the one that kind of deals the most with the sales side of things and the account management side of things?
Yeah, unfortunately, still fairly dependent on me at the moment, although working on it.
Yeah, great. Okay, so let's come up with a fake profile. So I want a name of somebody that typically works, that's your point of contact from like a sales point of view.
A fake name?
Like a fake name for like this is my ICP number one.
Your ICP, yeah.
Well, an individual that would be working. I mean, we need a fake name at this point. We'll call her Rachel.
Rachel, okay.
And Rachel, I'm such an inspiration, guys.
Rachel with an EA though, so
well, I hate her. I absolutely hate her already.
What's Rachel's job title?
I would say founder in most instances with us.
Yeah. Okay. Founder. Okay. Nice. So we basically split this out into actions, motivations, and pains. These are these columns, values, and context. Now, the idea here is that we want to really understand Rachel with an AE, and really get to like understand what motivates her. Like, how do we get our marketing assets in front of her so that we have the biggest impact possible? So what does Rachel do? What's her day-to-day look like?
Well, mostly it's still a little bit of everything, and that's the sort of sweet spot where we are, where they've gone from being sort of startup, founder-led, and they've maybe used some freelancers, some smaller agencies, and doing little bits of everything themselves. And they're just, I know I'm moving on to like pain points, but starting to feel diluted with that. So, they are the marketing manager, they are the head of accounts. And so yeah, they're doing a little bit of everything, and they're generally doing most things poorly because they're time poor.
Okay. Okay, nice. How big's the team? Per team?
Small, 3, 4, 5 people maybe.
Okay. Why does she do it?
It's her baby. She had a dream. She took it to market probably during COVID, and it grew bigger than she was expecting it to.
Okay. What does she actually want, though?
Time. She wants time back. She wants growth, and wants us to earn her trust.
Okay. What is stopping Rachel?
Lack of trust, lack of time, and lack of funds.
Is lack of trust because she's been burnt before?
Yeah, and refer you back to it's her baby.
Okay.
I think it's and sees email as a very personal sort of thing. It's her signing it off. It's her tone of voice, and lack of trust, lack of time, and funds. Cash flow.
Nice. Okay. Hobbies and free time, if she has any free time. She sounds very busy.
I think the business probably is still the hobby. It's that passion of a founder where they are still like working all the hours because they're the greater good and looking ahead. But
yeah, okay. What scares her?
Agencies or individuals not doing it the way that she does it.
Okay.
I think being taken for a ride, repeat of previous experience. Rope was what I learned when I was back in the sales days as an objection. And cash flow.
Yeah. Is she scared of losing the business, like the team, or?
I'd say probably it's the pendulum swings both ways. Either blindly optimistic, so not aware of any risks whatsoever, or completely the other way, imposter syndrome to the max, and is worried about competitors. I mean, competitors are probably what scares, or especially like big monsters, Amazon copying a product or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Can I just a big shout out to my spelling? I haven't made a single spelling mistake yet. This is great.
Yeah, it's really very.
That's because I don't think there's any words that are more than about 5 letters, so I wouldn't get too excited, Will.
What convinces me?
Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
Being embarrassed. Spell that one live, Will. Spell embarrassed live.
I always struggle with guarantee and
Wrong.
I always struggle with guarantee, but I couldn't think of a way to to segment them in. What convinces me? We're still talking about Rachel, right? What convinces Rachel? I would say customer feedback, salespeople constantly telling me that I can return this and that and the other, and sort of hyper optimistic sales inputs. I'd say less her sales team, more sales like reps. I think sometimes there's been a real sort of dream sold down the line of this and that and the other. And I think like other case studies, like tales from other brands, like aspirational brands.
Yeah. Amazing. Aspirational. Okay, so who or what informs me? So this is more around both like maybe it's friends, maybe they're confident, but then also like, what podcasts do they listen to? Like, where are they going for research?
Yeah, so I was gonna, not just because you've said it, but sort of mainstream podcasts. So, and I suppose, I mean, there's one significant central point to both of these things, but like Dragon's Den podcasts, so Stephen Bartlett and sort of stories. I'd say media, LinkedIn influencers.
Yeah.
And then a lot of like mentorship schemes. So, entrepreneurial things that you can access and things where the quality of mentorship of these sort of free schemes isn't perhaps always as great a quality as it is when you pay for a mentor.
Yeah. And then what about within like her close network? Who's she talking to?
Yeah, friends, family, partners. Partners always, I think, in businesses that we do tend to sort of play a key role, and they're difficult because you never see them or have access to them. So yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah.
I'd say as well in our regard, other agencies.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of a cross-agency meet, and it doesn't happen often enough, I think, especially in smaller brands. So you tend to get quite a siloed approach where this one person tries to absorb a lot of information from a lot of different sources and then feed it round, as opposed to just having a cross-agency meet. So, yeah.
Is it like a complimentary one? So
not competitor agencies coming in and saying, I mean, that would be a risk. Someone comes in and audits your work, and they're, rather than a straightforward audit, they're looking to find fault. But I think more, my paid media agency said that we should be doing more stuff like this, or my SEO agency has said that the Klaviyo script is slowing the page down and we should change it and stuff. So yeah, I suppose that often impacts our input.
Yeah, nice. Okay. What excites her?
The dream, acquisition, freedom, providing for a family's future, notoriety, reputation. LinkedIn likes, I think, are probably more crave than they should be. But yeah.
Okay. Great.
Freedom, I think, was the only other keyword that I'd say. Yeah, it's probably what most people are after.
Nice. Where is she? Where does she live?
Generally in the UK for us.
City?
London.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of house?
Relatively humble. Probably rented, and more than they can really afford as a business owner.
Okay. And what's her day-to-day look like? She starts in the morning. What time?
7. Firefighting. Probably back to back, more working in the business than on the business.
Yeah. Okay. And what time does she finish?
Hopefully for kids' bedtime at 7.
Okay.
Is this typically somebody who has a family, or is it starting a family?
Yeah, I think has a family. It's probably left the dream of spending more time with that family.
Not backfired.
Yeah.
What other miscellaneous things do we know about her?
I'm trying to think of examples without being too specific.
Specific good.
But yeah, I think feels constant pressure. Once I think, the biggest thing, and of all the points, I think, is that trust thing, and that sort of difficulty to untrusting would be a sort of a main thing. Other things would be,
So like struggling to like let go and delegate, that kind of personality.
yeah, and kind of doesn't is really in the dark about attribution and can't work out why all these agencies are saying that all these things are wonderful, yet if you added all that up, it would be 4 times what you're actually delivering. And probably not quite short-sighted, so not with like big 2, 3, 4, 5-year plans, really just kind of taking each month as it comes and trying to work to a plan, but it constantly be out of date.
Yeah, nice. So that is a bit of a personal profile that we can look at there, right? So just looking at it from a 30,000 foot view, we can see she's probably quite stressed, right? It doesn't have a lot of time. I would say this one's quite interesting. Reputation, likes and comments. It's always easier to drive leads when there's an ego involved. You could reach out to this ICP and say, we are doing we're doing an interview with the top 10 influential brands that are within your ICP. We'd love to jump on a 10-minute call and interview you, right? That's then you're creating content for then aspirational clients. Yeah. So just go back. So like focusing on ego is like a really, really, really easy way to then like target this. So when you're then like coming up with a campaign, which we'll get back to in a second, we'll go back to the slide deck. Like an ego play is a really nice opportunity to go down there. Obviously, the trust element is a big issue. Like it sometimes can be easier. Like when we're doing this exercise, and you have like CTOs who are in this, and they go, "Well, what makes them like be convinced by something?" It's typically data. But if this is more like they need to be trusted because they need to know the person, then there's a lot more nurturing that needs to go on there. But yeah, I would take this. I'll share this with you, Rich, and I would encourage everybody kind of on this call and on the previous call that closed down to have a look at doing something very similar and like really dive deep into what they need. Clearly, time is a big issue. So, are you going to be writing really, really long articles and 6-hour-long webinars? Probably not. But actually, something that's quite inspirational is probably going to be a really nice fit for this ICP. So, let's go back to this. Who's your ICP? So, what's your niche? Rich, if you're all right staying on, Rich, we'll go through what's your niche and we'll
that's fine.
Work out how to do this. So how to build.
Do you have profiles of clients that you're going after? A niche can be, just as a bit of information, they typically say it's like you've got a horizontal and vertical niche. So your horizontal could be food and bev, and your vertical could be subscription, for example. So not everybody has both. Like for me, it's e-commerce agencies. So you can have one or the other. Both is better.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely areas, so supplement, subscription, that we benefit from most, and that we would be in a world where we choose what we go for. But because the majority of our work is partner led, so partner introductions and stuff, that's the way I've sort of built everything, is the strength of that network of partners. And then what I try and do, and when you sort of said about the ICP and now the lack of it, I am taking notes. We try and keep that really, really simple. So we'd rather fish through the leads and stuff that come through from partners and treat them, rather than expecting to give them an ICP and then being able to work out whether it's a good intro or a bad intro. So we do kind of suggest that if they are on Shopify and Klaviyo, pass them through, because I'm willing to give half an hour of my time to anyone that's using Shopify and Klaviyo on the basis of, if the sum of it is there's one more person that knows who we are and associates us with those platforms, then great. What we'll then do is then filter out the vertical, the revenue, and from then when we get into audit stage, what the opportunity is. So the long answer to that is we are, I guess, targeting anyone that is using Klaviyo or willing to use it.
Yeah.
Which is too broad.
Yeah, very broad. It's like 90% of Shopify brands, right? It's but so in terms of like your partners that you talk about there, are they kind of more the complementary agencies or more the tech partners?
It's more the complementary agencies. I think the tech partners revolve around more of a commission kickback basis, whereas there's a lot more willingness with complementary agencies for reciprocal agreements. So yeah, more those complementary agencies.
Yeah, because I think with the tech partner stuff, if you can define a niche and like a really nice niche, and say to them, "Hey, we're going to run this niche campaign for the next 8 months, and it's all about supplement brands on subscription doing 5 million GMV," then those tech partners who are dealing with hundreds of agencies every month can go, "Okay, I've got a lead. It fits into this." Rather than going, "I've got a lead and I've got 100 agencies that all tell me they do Shopify and Klaviyo. Who do I give it to?" So I think like defining a niche, and it doesn't have to be a forever niche. It can be a campaign that you just test the waters with. You don't have to change your entire like positioning, but you can run these different niche campaigns, and that should enable both inbound leads and also partners from the tech side to give you some more leads.
Yeah, something I've had a couple of conversations with one quite sort of high profile growing app, especially when you think LinkedIn and stuff, about implementation partners. So, rather than kickbacks and stuff like that, you say, well, your onboarding ends at this point, but there's a whole wealth of benefits if you can set the right triggers and some basic flows up in Klaviyo as a result of your app and the events it's sending back. So toying with the idea of offering an implementation service for them to say, right, our onboarding is finished here, but we're going to pass you over to Get Better, who are going to implement and start these flows for you, as an in to then being able to sort of say, oh, while we're here, we've noticed a few other things.
Yeah, perfect, right? Like that's and then you then are defined as the agency that can do that integration.
Yeah,
which again,
that's the idea.
Is not something that you'd throw on your homepage, but it is in itself a niche campaign that you could then create content around if you wanted to. So we've got define who you're targeting, and I always think using case studies to determine a niche is a really easy way to do this. So are you doing a lot of the same for brands? So you said like supplements, right? If you've got more than one supplement brand that's doing subscription, especially with a Klaviyo integration, then I think that that's a really nice place to start. Like, how do you do subscription supplements? Like, what are you could then create different mediums of case studies off that. So video, webinars, again, playing to that ego, get them on there, get on the webinar, get them on a podcast, get them on a guest podcast. I know Recharge sponsor like a handful of podcasts. Like you could go to them and go, we're doing this really cool subscription integration with Klaviyo. I know you sponsor these podcasts. Any chance we could jump on as a guest? And I'm sure they'd support you doing that. To create lots of different mediums across the case studies, and then how do you complement them case studies with like supporting content as well? So case studies are one thing, but actually supplements, maybe there's a load of like legislation, and I'm not big into supplements, but is there a load of legislation about how you can and can't phrase certain things in email marketing? Does that change if they're looking to go cross-border? How are they going cross-border? Like all those different elements that you could then complement the case studies with different blogs, LinkedIn articles, video, podcast again, and just build out a mix of that content essentially. And then you want to create a nurture campaign. So 15 assets across all your case studies, Rich, and then all the complementary content to go on top of it. And that's how I would build out a perfect campaign for you. And this is the mix that you should have. This will give you all the different assets and the different touch points that's super niche. And the idea here is if I'm a subscription supplement brand doing 5 million based in the UK, and I don't have a lot of time, even though I set this up during COVID, and I've got a family at home that I want to spend more time with. If I am being bombarded by long and short form video, webinars, podcasts, quizzes, webinar, ebooks, guest articles across my different partner networks and their different types of inspiration, information, content, thought leaderships and case studies, and distributed through those different channels, then you guys will be the obvious choice for me to then go, okay, I'm ready to take this to the next step. We've had a bit of a decent Black Friday sales season. I'm ready to reach out to Get Better. In terms of distribution, I think like a lot of people struggle with this. Like they can create content, but maybe they don't know where to distribute it to. Obviously, put it on your own site. Like that's your final destination for it. LinkedIn social media is your big thing. If you're creating video, snip it up, create 30-second stuff and create shorts that go across social media and YouTube and Vimeo. Your partner network is like super valuable. Like any article you're doing, think about how you could get a partner involved. It doesn't have to be a big like, hey, can you sponsor this? Can you put loads of money behind it? It could be, can you give me a quote? And in return, can you share this across your email newsletter? Can you put this on your socials? Like it's a really good way to then drive up list and awareness. Use Crossbeam as well. Like anybody here that's not using Crossbeam, sign up for it. I should have got my referral code ready for the chat. But sign up for Crossbeam and get linked in with all your partners, so you can see whether or not a warm lead in your pipeline is becoming a warm lead with one of your partners, and then you can do some joint co-marketing together. Makes total sense, right? LinkedIn ads and meta ads. LinkedIn's really expensive, so what I would try and do is create a list with built with of your ICP, create a super targeted list. Once they start interacting with that ad, you can push them into a retarget ad on Meta. So you're spending less money, but you're still bombarding them with all your super niche content. How's that sound, Rich? You going to commit?
A lot of work. I'm that mum working 7 till 7, wishing I had more time. But no, I think we also we share so many like quick wins and little hacks like inside. So like when you were talking about supplement brands and is there a certain way they have to do things, we had one of our brands, their entire paid media was taken down because they used Judge Me for reviews. And so there's a widget and someone used a term that you're not allowed to advertise, a certain sort of ingredient, which Google picked up on the website. And so, setting up because obviously it's moderated generally by AI and it's for positive or negative sentiment. If it's positive sentiment, so it's a positive review, but it referenced one of the ingredients. So we put a filter in, almost like a profanity term, that if someone mentions this, don't publish it. And those are sort of like little hacks and stuff that can really, really help. And so, yeah, we should do more with that. And yeah, well aware of all of the channels and the tiny amount of them that I actually use. Like everything is in that partner network at the moment, and some very scatty LinkedIn content from me that mainly talks about hats and bounties as opposed to actual core offerings that we can do. So yeah, we need to level up here.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, so like, is that still a client of yours, the one with that who had that issue?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would ask them where they went when that issue first happened, like, and they started going bright red and started sweating because everything had turned off. Where did they go to find that answer?
Well, they just went very insular, and it bounced between the Google search agency and the founder for a while, until I managed to drag everyone into Klaviyo HQ's new partner annex for a cross-agency meeting where it was just mentioned in passing, and they were hoping that, we've asked for it to be reviewed again and this and that and the other. And I said, well, why don't you do this? And yeah, so I think, at first it was just like, well, this is a problem and I'm not going to be able to fix it. I've got to work around it, as opposed to actually having the solution there.
Yeah. Interesting. That's the kind of thing that like you could post that solution on Reddit and it would get likes. And it's like Reddit's great for this kind of stuff, especially if you can link back to your own article.
Yeah, or LinkedIn. I think one of the things that I would say, because for me, I'm working with agency owners like day in, day out, and I would agree with Rich in the sense that this looks like a lot of work. I would definitely agree with that, and I think it's very overwhelming. For me personally, I've done marketing instinctually because I did marketing for years, but it was never an intentional thing. It was more of a reactive thing. The two things that I would say that really made the difference for me and have made the difference for some of the agencies that I work with that have done this consistently, I can't iterate that enough. If you're not consistent, it's not going to work. Number one is building your audience. Like if you don't build your audience, so whether that's an in-person audience, like I have with my in-person events, or your digital audience through whatever channels you're using, so whether it's a newsletter, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever that is, if you don't proactively build that audience with people that you're trying to target, none of this is going to work because, I could post all day, every day. I came from the Amazon Web Services world. I was in that world for a while and ran a startup there. And I had over 10,000 connections, but they were more or less all from AWS. So when I got started in this business, I ended up removing 7,000 or 8,000 contacts and then rebuilding again, because there's no point me sending content to AWS people. It makes no difference to them. And the other thing as well, I don't know if I can share my screen because mine is prettier. Can I? Is this sharing?
Yeah.
Don't know what that means. Okay. I can send this out to anybody who wants. I've got a template. I'll actually add this on the email. What I decided to do this Christmas or over the holidays was actually build out. Now, I've got a more comprehensive version of this in my Monday board, but having something like this where I can go through, can I zoom in a wee bit here? Make it a wee bit bigger. I just basically go through and I know that we're on the last week of the month now. We've got the webinar here with Will, which is in here. I know that I've got my LinkedIn post scheduled. I've got the newsletter scheduled to go tomorrow. The ebook, work in progress, Will, that is planned to go out for this week, and then a LinkedIn post. So it means that I can go through here and be really intentional, and I can map out a structure. And then all I need to do then is create the content. So the content for me, just like Will said, it really comes down to having those conversations with the agencies. Because if I'm having a conversation with Martin from Quickfire, and then I have a conversation with Adrian from Tanti E, and then I have a conversation with Wojciech, and then another person, I have a conversation with 3 or 4 or 5 people in a space of a week or two, and it's the same thing. I'm like, okay, so this month the conversations I've had have been largely focused on marketing and how do I build a marketing strategy, and I need a marketing strategy so I can control my deal value and the leads that are coming to the platform. So for me, then I think if I have 3 or 4 of these conversations, the best thing to do is to bring in the person that I know that is qualified to speak to this better than I am, whilst I can give advice, I'm not an expert, and then put on something like this. So I know that it's a value to 5 people in front of me, then it'll be a value to 50 people or 100 people. And that's ultimately the way that I've gone about it in a practical term. I've seen a lot of people that just do this, like they just throw a lot of shit. That's not marketing, like doing a lot of shit and doing a lot of like content and just all this bullshit on LinkedIn that is just for engagement. And they've got like, take this free download and download this free template just so they can target. I would say don't get distracted with the bullshit you see online that is for engagement, and instead focus on value. Because for me, an average post, I get 20 or 30 likes, but I get probably 2 or 3 agencies that reach out to me for every single post. And those are agencies that want to have a serious conversation, and that's just consistently, and it's because I'm putting out content that speaks directly to pain points that agencies are having based on conversations that I'm already having.
They're the metrics that matter as well, right? Like nobody cares how many likes you got. It's all about the sales and the conversations you're having.
Yeah, and you can go back to sharing your screen again.
So I think we're running out of time. I can't see any questions in the chat. If anybody's got any questions,
yeah, it's because you malfunctioned and we reset it. I do have some questions from my side though. Let me just see here. Okay, so questions from my side. I took some of the notes from questions. One of the questions from Wojciech was around a case study. So what makes a really good case study, or what does a good case study look like?
Yeah. Actual stats. Like if you, the harder the stats, the better. So when I see case studies and they've increased the conversion rate by 6,000%, I'm like, what is that? Where's that gone from? 0.1 to 0.6 conversion rate? Like, so get some hard stats on a case study. If you can talk about revenue, that's even better. Like if you can say, we helped this brand go from 5 to 10 million, that's amazing. That's a really cool stat. And use the stat as a headline as well. So whatever the best stat is, use that as a headline. I like to do an intro into the brand for anybody that doesn't know the brand, quick introduction, make it nice and friendly, and then talk about the standard kind of problem, solution, results format, but have the results at the top of your case study in bullet point form so that people can read it. Oh, this is relevant for me. Crack on. If you want, in terms of like how I found a really nice way of like getting the case studies out there is by interviewing a ton of people that are on the business side. So your account managers will have a different solution or different like perspective into the solution that you provided versus like the salesperson who sold it in. So interview them both and then bang it all into ChatGPT and ask it for a summary. That way you can write a case study off from several different perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some great, I'm going to make a note here. I've made a few notes. There's a couple of great GPT prompts. There's a couple of great tools. I'm not a big fan of using ChatGPT to actually generate content. I think that it's great for ideation and it's great for editing, but I think the bit in the middle, which is really the meaty bit, I just think that let's not let the robots do that, because number one, we're teaching it. We're teaching it to take over. My husband keeps joking that he's going to get a robot to help around the house, and I'm like, you're going to wake up with somebody standing over your bed staring at you, and that's my job. That's not a robot's job. That's my job. That's the role I play in this healthy relationship. But yeah, I think like generating content, there are a couple of good prompts that I find. So if ideation is something that you struggle with, I know a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with analysis paralysis and decision fatigue. So actually figuring out what topics can I speak to? There are tools within ChatGPT that are dedicated to creating content calendars for you. And when I first got started, I think what I did is I had like a load of topics and it was really scattergun and it was like a load of shit. And I went in and I used one of the tools that I'd found a post about on LinkedIn, and it created a 30-day plan based on all of these topics and pain points that I was speaking to agencies about. So you can go in and leverage AI to be able to do that, and then do a voice note and then speak whatever it is in your mind on that topic, and then take that content and then put it into ChatGPT and get that to kind of reformulate it and then build from there. So I think like there's lots of ways. There is no excuse to be able to do this. You can make it easier or harder for yourself. I spent all Christmas actually writing. Each post takes me about an hour to write. But I took maybe a week or two to create 3 months, to write 3 months of content, and then that's me for the next 3 months. We don't all have that luxury, but
it's done. Then,
yeah. Do you want to? I know we've got like 5 minutes left. I know that the tool soul is a big one. If you want to share your slide again, so I'm gonna add a template for a case study that I have that people often use. I'm gonna share the marketing calendar template. And I'm also going to share that ChatGPT prompt for people who want a little bit of help there.
Nice. Can you share my screen?
Yeah.
Thanks.
There you go.
Nice. Yeah, these are just some recommended tools that I use weekly, if not daily. So HubSpot Marketing Pro, it is expensive, as is everything with HubSpot. You kind of pay to upgrade, but the beauty here is like all the automation side of things. We build out automated campaigns that trigger when somebody becomes a subscriber, and you can nurture them really gently over the next 6 months until they become the right person until they're ready to kind of purchase off you. The active campaign is another one. It's not as good, but it's a lot cheaper. So if you want to dip your toes into it, I definitely recommend trying out active campaign. Typeform Typeform and Video Ask are both really, really good for driving testimonials. So use Video Ask. Again, you could sign up for a free trial. It comes with like a little watermark logo, but send it to your clients and get them to just like record a little video on there. Then you've got all that for testimonials, and you can use it for case studies as well. Opus Pro, I sent this to you, Rachel, as well. Opus Pro splits long form content like webinars into 30-second clips. It uses AI to work out what's the most engaging part of your videos, and then you get 30-second clips. You get 10 of them, you can bang them out once a week. That's 10 weeks worth of content sorted. Livestorm is a good webinar platform that doesn't kick you out halfway through for pressing the wrong button. Riverside is great for recording podcasts, and then Outgrow's really good for doing quizzes and creating like engaging content where you have results based at the end of it. That's pretty quick. I ran through those.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's always a question that I get from my end, like what tools, and I know that agencies have massive tool envy. They want to know what other people are using and what's working for them. I'm using Riverside for my YouTube series for my recordings. I'm trialing GoToWebinar, so let's see how that goes. Maybe I'll have a little look at Livestorm. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the tool is as good as the strategy behind it and the reason for using it. So I think like start small, I would say, like start small and be consistent. So one final thing, I know we've got like a minute or two left. If the people that were on this webinar or watching this recording, if you could give them 2 or 3 action items, either to get started, but they're action items that would be impactful, what would you recommend them go away and do?
Figure out your niche and make it as niche as possible. Yeah. 2 or 3
action items, or just one? Like, is that it? Is that like mic drop in your mind?
That's number 1. Figure out your niche. Number 2, write a micro case study. So rather than doing, we see a lot of these big case studies that's like, here's how we migrated to Shopify. Do a case study about a tiny little element of a project that you've done. That could be the design or the UX of a PDP, or it could be how you made this one email flow work really well to drive loads of revenue. But a micro case study rather than a big picture one. Do one that's niche. Or even like going back to Rich's thing, like how did you solve the issue with Google banning you? Who judged me? So micro case study. Last one. Don't use ChatGPT to write LinkedIn posts. Yeah,
agree. Yeah, I would say the same. Define your niche, your ICP. They're not one and the same. My niche is not necessarily my ICP. My niche is the value that I'm providing to my ICP. I think if you want to do really good marketing, in my opinion, everything starts and stops with your ICP. If you don't know who you're targeting, nothing else makes sense. If I know that I'm targeting e-commerce agencies, in my case, then I know what partners I need to be working with. I know where they live. I know where they network. And I know what their problems are, and I know how to communicate effectively the solutions that I've created for those problems. If I don't know who it is that I'm targeting, nothing else makes sense. It's all just a load of valuable content aimed at everyone, which then targets really no one, is what I've found. So yeah, that's it really. I think, I don't know if you're at the end of your presentation, but I've certainly had enough. I'm just joking. I'm done. I'm done with this. Yeah, we'll share these slides afterwards for anybody who wants to go through these slides and have follow-up conversations. I know there was a couple of questions, but we lost the chat. I don't know what happened there, so I'll have a look into it. For those of you who don't know, I know that quite a few of the people that are on here in the group are already members or already in our community or members of our private community. Will is actually one of the agency coaches. So you've got a series of coaches: operations, delivery, recruitment, leadership, sales, marketing, outbound. We've got a handful of coaches there, Will being the one on the marketing side. He also runs an agency. So if you want to join a community and get access to more bits and pieces like this and all of the tools and the resources, then of course, give me a shout. Find me on LinkedIn, I would say. I don't think it's that complicated. Rachel Jacobs, find me on there and happy to send over the details. And if you qualify and you're a good fit, then we can have a chat. I'll connect both Will and I on the email, so it means if you want to reach out directly to either of us, you can.